and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing a caricature Leia, or Carrie Fisher, if you will, in Procreate 5. Now, Carrie Fisher is a hero of mine, so to speak. She's obviously famous for playing the Princess Leia role in the Star Wars movies, but she has a very wild and amazing life, not only professionally but also personally. And I wanted to take a little bit of time in today's video to just kind of discuss that a bit. Now, Carrie Fisher was born in 1956. She passed, unfortunately, back in 2016. And as I mentioned before, she's probably best known for playing Princess Leia in the Star Wars films, but she had a very, vast career, not only in film, but in also a lot of other industries outside those Star Wars films. Now, if we speak just to the movies, we can speak to credits like Shampoo, the Blues Brothers, The Burbs, if you remember that one. She had a supporting actress role in When Harry Met Sally, and also in a movie called Soap Dish back in the early 90s. Again, obviously, Star Wars is what she's most famous for, but she also worked in Hollywood in a lot of other capacity as well, and many times working as something of a script doctor. So she has credits associating her talents to clean up scripts for movies like Hook, Sister Act, The Wedding Singer, and a few others. She's also written books, she's done Broadway shows, she's written Broadway shows, and even wrote screenplays for movies such as Postcards on the Edge. Now, Postcards on the Edge was a really interesting one because this is actually something of a telling of her life story, dealing with drug abuse and addiction. She won a lot of awards for this, and I won't really take the time to go into all the awards that she's received over the years because there have been many. But the reality is that she was just an amazing woman with a lot of talent, and she was an advocate for a lot of groups as well. In later years, she earned praise for speaking publicly about her drug addiction. But not only that, she was also a supporter and an advocate for women's advocacy, animals' rights, LGBT causes. She even spoke up and tried to offer support for friends who suffer from AIDS, and worked to contribute financially and support financial organizations meant to combat the AIDS epidemic. She's also been an an honorary board member for the International Bipolar Foundation. Now, something that's also very interesting about her is a little bit of her kind of her genealogy. A lot of people may know this. I just always found this very interesting. She is the daughter of some Hollywood royalty, if you want to think of it that way. So, Carrie Fisher is the daughter of a singer, Eddie Fisher, and the actress Debbie Reynolds. And Debbie Reynolds and Carrie Fisher, I don't know about their relationship. They seem to be very close in some respects, but it also seemed that Debbie Reynolds really kind of tried to push Carrie into some Hollywood-type things that she may not necessarily been comfortable with, like singing as a career. Debbie Reynolds always really wanted her to sing. But the really interesting story kind of about her life is that when she was very young, again, being a daughter of both Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds, these are big profile celebrities back in the day. And she was famous just for being a daughter of these two, Hollywood royalty, so to speak. But what became very interesting is that Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds were also very, very close friends with Elizabeth Taylor and her wife, her husband at the time. And as the story goes, and this is actually coming from an interview I recently saw with Carrie Fisher, there was something that happened. Eddie Fisher ended up consoling Elizabeth Taylor after she, I guess her marriage dissolved or something to that effect. And long story short here, Eddie Fisher ended up having an affair and leaving Debbie Reynolds to be with Elizabeth Taylor. And this is something that obviously must have affected Carrie very much because she was very young. She was only 2 years old when her parents divorced. Now, I think what's really funny about this is an interview I recently saw with her. I believe it was with Arsenio Hall back in the early 90s, where he asked her about what had exactly had happened here. And Carrie, not being very shy about it, just admitted, Elizabeth Taylor was, having some personal difficulty. Her father, Eddie Fisher, felt the need to console her, in her words, with his penis. Again, just very blunt spoken, and this is something I've always very much respected about Carrie Fisher. She doesn't pull punches. She tells you what she's thinking, and she doesn't make any apologies for it. And that outspoken brashness is a characteristic that's often attributed with Princess Leia. But the reality here is that Carrie Fisher was very much this personality. And there might be some discussion that could be had as, where Carrie Fisher ends and where Leia begins, or vice versa. But I think that if you ask Carrie, and I'm sure she said it at one point or another, the two are very similar in a lot of respects when it comes to that outspoken attitude. If anything, Carrie might even be considered to be something of an advocate or a forerunner for some, women's liberation and women equality causes that we speak to today. Carrie also had a string of relationships with some very interesting men as well. She wrote an autobiography called The Princess Diarist, and even though I didn't read it, there was a lot of mention about some of the men that she had in her life. For instance, she did admit that she had a 3-month affair during the Star Wars filming with Harrison Ford back in 1976. And in the late 70s and the early 80s, she spent some time dating and ultimately married Paul Simon. But before she did marry Paul Simon, she actually was also briefly engaged to a Canadian actor that you may have heard of named Dan Aykroyd, who she met when she was on the set of the film The Blues Brothers. So again, a lot of famous people kind of in and out of her life, and it's just something that became kind of part of her everyday, day-to-day activity, was just kind of hobnobbing amongst all these Hollywood celebrities, so to speak. Obviously, this was just a very normal life for her, but it made really, really interesting reading when she wrote about her relationships and about her friendships with all these Hollywood elites in any sort of a book or any sort of a talk that she did on Broadway, one-woman show, anything like that. She was never shy about any of this stuff, and we, I guess, as the general public, ate this stuff up, and Carrie was more than happy, I think, to kind of put that out there for us to see. And, even some of the uglier aspects of it as well. Again, she didn't really pull punches. She kind of said it as she saw it, and that made her something of a breath of fresh air, if you ask me. Now, in finishing this whole thing up, this discussion of Carrie, let me just kind of mention this one last thing. She had a very, very close relationship with her co-stars in the Star Wars films. Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill spoke very, very highly of her and with enormous amount of affection when she passed, and they had the opportunity to kind of speak about their relationship together. So I wanted to take a moment here and quote, if I could, Mark Hamill. He wrote a very, very compelling piece about Carrie Fisher after she passed, and I wanted to just kind of read you something of an excerpt from it. When you were in your good graces, let me try that again. When you were in her good graces, you couldn't have more fun with any other person on the planet. She was able to make you feel like you were the most important thing in her life. And I think that's a really rare quality. And then you could go 180 degrees opposite, where you were furious with one another and wouldn't speak for weeks and weeks. But that's all part of what makes a relationship complete. It's not all one-sided. Like I say, she was a handful. She was high maintenance. But my life would have been so much drabber and less interesting if she hadn't been the friend that she was. Carrie Fisher is going to be very, very much missed. Obviously, she had a huge impact on the ability for people to kind of embrace the geekier aspects of sci-fi fantasy and things like that. But above and beyond that, it was her advocacy and her charity, I think, that really kind of sold this idea that she was more than just an actress and more than just a writer. Her talents were numerous in a lot of respects, and again, she's going to be sorely missed in the industry, I'm sure. If not by Hollywood itself, certainly by this fan right here. So I'll leave that as is, and just take a moment here to speak briefly about the artwork and about some of the development method here. Now, this is a reference photo from the Star Wars movie, from the first Star Wars movie, one of her more iconic poses, but I did change the background and simplify it a little bit. What I really enjoyed about the picture itself that I was using as reference was this bold red light source that kind of comes in from the right-hand side, and so I complemented it with some cooler bluish-green type colors on the left-hand side to give me some cooler shadows, but also kind of a secondary light source to kind of bring in some fill on the other side of his face and her blouse. Ultimately, I didn't really pull very many tricks on how I kind of rendered this or pulled it off. I really just kind of drew it as literally as I could. So again, there's not a lot of detail to kind of speak to as the development method here, other than just the color theory itself. And the color theory is really just kind of speaking to the opposite colors. A nice warm red, a nice cool bluish green to complement it, and ultimately what I'm hoping is happening here is that we get some true pop of the face and of the character itself kind of in the middle of the foreground there. I really enjoyed kind of working on Carrie's face here. I tried to get it to look as much like her as possible, but that can be something of a challenge when you consider that this photo is a much younger version of her when she was roughly about 19 years old. And even though we identify this as Carrie Fisher very much, Carrie has obviously aged over the years and become an older woman, and honestly, as I grew up with her. And so it was a little bit difficult trying to kind of get a resemblance of a younger version of her when the picture in my head is something of a more mature Carrie. Regardless, I hope I kind of pulled this one off. I feel like I did capture something of a resemblance, especially in those large doe eyes that she seems to pull off so very well. Now, I will take a moment here and offer a little bit of a shameless plug before I sign off, like I always do. So please, if you haven't done so already, take a minute to hit that subscribe button. There's also a bell down there as well, and if you click on the bell, that's going to be a notification alert to let you know the next time I post a video. I try to post at least once a week, if not more. So please, take some time to come back, visit, take a look at some other videos. In addition, share with your friends. I'm really trying to grow this channel, and the more I grow it, the more I have the ability to do more artwork and kind of try to help satisfy the masses, so to speak. So if you share with somebody that might be interested in this sort of stuff, hopefully I'll get some more subscriptions, some more views, and it will kind of spur the inspiration to kind of create more work like this. Also, leave a comment. I always try to respond to anybody that leaves a comment, and I would love to hear what your thoughts on this are. In the meantime, I'm going to take a moment here and sign off. And I just want to say one more time, thanks for stopping by, thanks for viewing the channel, and thanks for viewing this particular video. As I promised before, I'll put some links at the end of this video to some other Star Wars related videos if you're interested. And in the meantime, have a great day, and I hope to see you again soon. Enjoy the music and the rest of the video, and take care.